Friends, if you want to watch super hit movie Anaconda in English, then you must like this video. If you are visiting our channel for the first time, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, friends, in today's video. The movie we're going to talk about is called Anaconda. We will talk about what this movie is and where you can watch it, all the interesting facts about this movie in today's video. I'm going to tell you, I am also going to give you all the information on which OTT platform or on which satellite channel you will get to watch this movie. Also, we will talk in detail about the technical department, music department, pre-production, filming, post-production, budget, box office collection of this film. We will also talk about the story of this film, and I will also give you a small review of the story of this film. Apart from this, we will discuss about the facts of this film, storyline, starcast actors' performance in the film, and which character has played which role. That's why I request you, friends, to watch this video till the end. So let's start the video. Anaconda is a 1997 action-adventure horror film directed by Louis Lee. Osan, starring Jennifer Lopez, Ice Cube, Jon Voight, Eric Stoltz, Jonathan Hyde, and Owen Wilson. An international co-production between the United States and Brazil, the film focuses on a documentary film crew in the Amazon rainforest that is led by a snake hunter who is hunting down a giant, legendary green anaconda. The film received generally mixed to negative reviews, but was a box office success and has become a 1990s cult classic. It is the first installment in the Anaconda film series. Plot: on the Amazon River, a poacher hides from an unknown creature in his boat. When it breaks through the boat and attempts to trap the poacher, he commits suicide by shooting himself to prevent it from killing him. Meanwhile, a film crew is shooting a documentary about the Shirichamas, a long-lost indigenous Amazonian tribe. The ensemble consists of director Terry Flores, cameraman and childhood friend Danny Rich, production manager Denise Kalberg, Denise's boyfriend and sound engineer Gary Dixon, narrator Warren Westridge, anthropologist Professor Stephen Cale, and boat skipper Mateo. The group encounters stranded Paraguayan snake hunter Paul Cerrone, who convinces them he can help them find the Shirichamas. Most of the crew are uncomfortable around Cerrone, and Cale clashes with him several times about Shirichama lore. Eventually, Cale is stung by a wasp, and an allergic reaction swells up his throat and leaves him unconscious. Cerrone performs an emergency cricothyrotomy, seemingly saving Cale's life, but soon after takes over the boat, forcing the group to help him achieve his true goal: hunting down a giant record-breaking green anaconda he had been tracking, which he believes that he can capture alive. Danny, Mateo, and Cerrone search the wreckage of the poacher's boat. A photograph in an old newspaper reveals that Mateo, Cerrone, and the poacher were working together to hunt animals, including snakes. Leaving the poacher's ship, Mateo falls into the water, where the giant male warrior anaconda, measuring 25 feet, 7.6 meters, ambushes and kills him, while the other two return to their boat, unaware of Mateo's fate. Cerrone manipulates Gary into helping him ensnare the creature, which might get him $1 million in price. That night, he uses a dead monkey as bait to catch the creature, which proceeds to emerge and attack the crew. He attempts to capture the snake, but it coils around Gary, crushing him. Cerrone thwarts Terry's attempt to shoot the anaconda to rescue Gary, whom it devours, devastating Denise. The crew overpowers Cerrone and ties him up as punishment. The next day, the boat becomes jammed near a waterfall, and Terry, Danny, and Westridge enter the water to winch it loose. Denise confronts Cerrone and attempts to kill him to avenge Gary's death, but he ambushes and strangles her with his legs before dumping her corpse into the river. When the creature returns, Westridge distracts it long enough for Terry and Danny to retreat while he ascends the waterfall. Cerrone breaks free during the attack and assaults Danny. The snake mounts a tree branch and attacks Westridge, unintentionally uprooting the tree, and he perishes in the subsequent fall. The tree falls onto the boat, subsequently awakening Cale, and Cerrone, Danny, and Terry escape by jumping into the river. The snake resurfaces and attacks Danny, but Terry, having reboarded the boat, rescues him by shooting one of its eyes out. Cerrone, still believing he can capture it alive, reboards the boat and pulverizes her. Cale rescues her by stabbing Cerrone with a tranquilizer dart before losing consciousness again himself, and Danny pummels Cerrone into the river. Cerrone eventually catches up to the group and captures Terry and Danny. drenching them with animal blood to bait a second, much larger female queen anaconda, measuring 40 feet, 12 meters. It attacks the pair, slowly suffocating them. He tries to catch it in a net, but it breaks free and attacks him, eventually swallowing him whole, which the pair observe while escaping their respective bonds. It chases Terry into a building, where she encounters a nest full of newborn anacondas, then regurgitates the still alive but partially digested Cerrone and chases her up a smokestack. Danny pins its tail to the ground with a pickaxe and ignites a fire below the smokestack, setting the snake ablaze. The resulting explosion sends the burning anaconda flying out of the building and into the water. As Terry and Danny recuperate on a nearby dock, the creature resurfaces, but he slaughters it with an axe to the head. Afterward, the pair reunites with Cale, who begins recuperating on the boat. While floating downriver, the trio locates the Shirishama tribe they were originally seeking, and realizing Cerrone was right, begins filming their documentary. Cast: Jennifer Lopez as Terry Flores, Ice Cube as Danny Rich, Jon Voight as Paul Cerrone, Eric Stoltz as Dr. Stephen Cale, Jonathan Hyde as Warren Westridge, Owen Wilson as Gary Dixon, Kari Woorer as Denise Kalberg,
Vincent Castellanos as Mateo,
Danny Trejo as Poacher, Frank Welker and Gary A. Hecker as Anaconda. Music: Soundtrack: Randy Edelman composed and conducted the film's soundtrack, released by Edel America Records. Reception: Box office: The film opened at number 1 with $16.6 million in its first weekend and remained at the top spot in its following week. In total, Anaconda went on to gross $136.8 million worldwide. Critical response: On the review aggregator website Rotten Tomatoes, 41% of 56 critics' reviews are positive, with an average rating of 5/10. The website's consensus reads, "Anaconda's pulpy pleasures are constricted by its own absurdity, but creature feature fans may enjoy its brazen silliness." Metacritic, which uses a weighted average, assigned the film a score of 37 out of 100 based on 20 critics, indicating generally unfavorable reviews. Audiences polled by CinemaScore gave the film an average grade of B on an A+ to F scale. Film critic Leonard Maltin awarded the film a mixed 2 out of a possible 4 stars, criticizing the film's hokey special effects and expositionless script, but complimented the film's use of Brazilian locale and Voight's campy performance. Roger Ebert awarded the film out of 4 stars and called it a slick, scary, funny creature feature, beautifully photographed and splendidly acted in high adventure style. Despite the initial negative reception, Anaconda has since become a cult classic, often viewed as being so bad it's good. The film is listed in Golden Raspberry Award founder John Wilson's book, The Official Razzie Movie Guide, as one of the 100 most enjoyably bad movies ever made. Accolade: The film was nominated for 6 Razzie Awards in 1998, including Worst Picture, which lost to The Postman, Worst Actor, Jon Voight, which went to Kevin Costner for The Postman, Worst Director, awarded to Costner for The Postman, Worst Screenplay, lost to The Postman, Worst New Star, the animatronic Anaconda, which went to Dennis Rodman for Double Team, and Worst Screen Couple, Voight and the animatronic Anaconda, where they lost to Rodman and Jean-Claude Van Damme for Double Team. User-generated source: It was also nominated for 2 Saturn Awards, including Best Actress, Jennifer Lopez, who lost to Jodie Foster for Contact, and Best Horror Film, which went to The Devil's Advocate. It won 2 Stinkers Awards, including Worst Supporting Actor and Worst Fake Accent for Jon Voight, who also won the latter award for Most Wanted. Legacy: The broadcast of the movie during primetime viewing on South African television station ETV has become a national running gag, with the station airing the movie several times every year since the mid-2000s. Other media: Sequel. Main articles: Anacondas, The Hunt for the Blood Orchid, Anaconda 3 Offspring, and Anaconda's Trail of Blood. A sequel, Anacondas, The Hunt for the Blood Orchid, was released to theaters in 2004. 2 more films follows with a direct-to-video release: Anaconda 3 Offspring 2008 and Anaconda's Trail of Blood 2009. Crossover. Main article: Lake Placid vs. Anaconda. Lake Placid vs. Anaconda 2015, a crossover film with the Lake Placid film series. Even though no characters from the first film appear in the sequels, the events of the first film are referenced by the character Cole Burris in the second film when he says he knows a man, Dr. Stephen Cale, and another man, Danny Rich, that took a crew down to the Amazon where they were attacked by snakes. In Lake Placid vs. Anaconda, character Will Tully Tull describes the same incident of the snakes in the Amazon Tariba without explicitly mentioning the characters. Remake. On March 1st, 2024, a Chinese-produced remake was released. Reboot. Main article, Anaconda 2025 film. In January 2020, Sony Pictures announced a reboot is in development, and screenwriter Evan Doherty was hired to write the reboot film. In 2023, Tom Gormican was announced to direct the film. In August 2024, Variety reported that Jack Black and Paul Rudd were in early talks to star in the film, which was said to focus on a group of friends who seek to remake the original 1997 film. Gormican would also co-write with Kevin Etten. Brad Fuller and Andrew Form would produce through their fully formed entertainment company. Daniela Melchior joined the cast a month later. Alone among snakes, anacondas are unique. After eating their prey, they regurgitate in order to eat again. This information is included in the opening titles of Anaconda, and as the words rolled across the screen, I heard a chuckle in the theater. It came from me. I sensed with a deep certainty that before the movie was over, I would see an anaconda regurgitate its prey. Human prey, preferably. Anaconda did not disappoint me. It's a slick, scary, funny creature feature, beautifully photographed and splendidly acted in high adventure style. Its snakes are thoroughly satisfying. The most dreaded predator of the Amazon, we learn, the anaconda can grow to 40 feet in length and crushes its prey before engorging it whole. So whole that it eats an entire jaguar, leaving behind only a single poignant eyeball. These insights into anaconda lore come mostly from a character named Cerrone, played by Jon Voight as a slimy river rat with a dangerous gleam in his eye. This river can kill you in 1,000 ways, he intones, and we get the feeling that he can too. The propeller of his boat is broken, and he's rescued by a small expedition that hopes to make a documentary about the people of the mist, a legendary lost Amazon tribe. I know them, Cerrone says. They saved my life, and are probably still regretting it. The leader of the expedition is Terry Flores, Jennifer Lopez from Selena, who will direct the documentary. Ice Cube plays Danny, her cinematographer. Eric Stoltz is Dr. Stephen Cale, a scientist. The other members include Jonathan Hyde as their fastidious British narrator, Owen Wilson as the sound man. Ever notice how the jungle makes you horny? Vincent Castellanos as the sinister boat pilot, and Carrie Wooer as a production assistant. If the cast seems large, reflect that some, perhaps many of these characters are required so that they can be eaten by snakes. A movie like Anaconda can easily be dumb and goofy. See Piranha. Much depends on the skill of the filmmakers. Here, one of the key players is the cinematographer, Bill Butler, who creates a seductive yet somehow sinister jungle atmosphere. The movie looks great, and the visuals and the convincing soundtrack and ominous music make the Amazon into a place with presence and personality. It's not a backdrop, it's an enveloping presence. The acting is also crucial. Director Luis Llosa, whose Sniper, 1993, was another good thriller set in the jungle, finds the right notes. He gives the members of the expedition plausible backgrounds. Lopez and Ice Cube say they met in the USC Film School, and he allows Jon Voight to take some chances with his performance. Voight's river rat is always on the delectable edge of overacting. He sneers, he frowns, he grimaces, he utters ominous pronouncements. So young and yet so lethal, he says, as a baby snake sinks its teeth into a fingertip. This is a daring performance. Voight, a serious actor, isn't afraid to pull out the stops as a melodramatic villain, and his final scene, which he plays with a wink, will be remembered wherever great movie exits are treasured. Now, as for the snakes, several kinds of snakes are used in the movie. Animated, animatronic, and, for all I know, real. They are mostly convincing. There are a few moments when we know, if we bother to think about it, that special effects are being used, especially in a scene where a flaming snake attacks. But there are other moments that earn a gasp from the audience, including one where a giant snake captures its falling prey in midair. There are utterly convincing close-ups of an anaconda's head, its bright eyes glistening, its mouth gaping open to reveal fangs, its skin gleaming with a terrible beauty. Those shots are matched by a point-of-view shot from inside the snake, and by another in which we see the snake's belly skin stretched tautly over the body and face of one of its victims. The screenplay has nice authentic touches. The Eric Stoltz character lectures on the dangers of going into the water. He's less afraid of the snakes than of the little catfish that swims up through your urethra, finds a nice warm spot, and spreads its thorny little spines. A scuba diver finds a poisonous wasp in his mouthpiece. An emergency tracheotomy is performed with a pocket knife. There's a mysterious wall built across the river, which they blow up with dynamite that Voight happens to have with him. Always good to be prepared. And a protest that blowing up the wall will upset the ecological balance of the river. Yeah, like the wall grew there. Anaconda is an example of one of the hardest kinds of films to make well, a superior mass audience entertainment. It has the effects and the thrills, but it also has big laughs, quirky dialogue, and a gruesome imagination. You've got to like a film where a lustful couple sneaks out into the dangerous jungle at night and suddenly the guy whispers, "Wait! Did you hear that? Silence!" Luis Llosa's 1997 creature feature Anaconda has become one of the most beloved bad movies ever made. The big-budget B-movie has been listed among the 100 most enjoyable bad movies in the official Razzie Movie Guide, written by Golden Raspberry Award founder Jon Voight. The film follows a National Geographic film crew venturing into the Amazon jungle to capture footage of exotic wildlife, only to be held hostage by a maniacal poacher intent on finding the world's largest snake. With a budget of $45 million, Anaconda opened #1 at the domestic box office when released on April 11, 1997, earning $16.6 million opening weekend and a total of $136 million internationally. It has since become a cult classic that has spawned a slew of sequels. Before the part was ultimately awarded to Jon Voight, several big-name actors were in the running for Paul Cerrone, the nefarious wildlife poacher in the film. Jean Reno was considered for the role, while Sean Connery and Tommy Lee Jones declined it outright. Other veteran actors in consideration for Cerrone included Jack Nicholson, Martin Sheen, Kirk Douglas, John Malkovich, Liam Neeson, and Harrison Ford. Prior to Jennifer Lopez being cast as Terry Forrest, the character's surname was Porter. Other actresses considered for the role included Jennifer Aniston, Kate Beckinsale, Nicole Kidman, Juliette Binoche, Sandra Bullock, and Kim Basinger. Gillian Anderson and Juliana Margulies both declined the role of Terry. As for the role of Denise Kalberg, Carrie Wooer, everyone from Cameron Diaz, Gwyneth Paltrow, and Isabella Scorupco to Annette Bening and Terry Hatcher was in the running. Gillian Anderson auditioned as Denise after turning down the role of Terry. Just like Paul Cerrone, Terry Flores, and Denise Kalberg, several other actors could have been cast as Danny Rich, Ice Cube, and Dr. Stephen Qualley, Eric Stoltz in Anaconda. For the role of Danny Rich, everyone from Bill Murray, Will Smith, and Ving Rhames to Albert Brooks and Keith David were envisioned. As for Dr. Cale, Billy Crystal, Michael J. Fox, Ben Stiller, Ray Romano, Dennis Quaid, and Dave Foley were up for the role. Anaconda features a balanced mixture of practical animatronic snakes and ones that are computer-generated. Because CGI was so expensive at the time, every second of screen time depicting the CG snakes cost $100,000. The two primary snakes featured in the film were achieved through animatronics. For the queen snake, a 40-foot model that weighed roughly 5,000 pounds, 2.5 tons, was used. The second warrior model was an animatronic device that measured 25 feet and roughly 1,500 pounds. The aforementioned 40-foot animatronic model for the queen anaconda seen in the film currently resides in San Francisco at the California Academy of Sciences. The large model has been placed inside the Amazon Rainforest Aquarium and Snake Pit attraction at the Academy. The model has had the skin and tail removed, displaying the snake's endoskeleton and complex circuitry of the animatronic wiring. At one point during Anaconda, a scene plays so blatantly in reverse that a waterfall can be seen dripping upward. The scene occurs just as Paul Cerrone plummets into the water before. As the boat slips off the rocks, the waterfall in the background is clearly moving up the cliff in reverse, indicating that the scene was played backward in the editing process. Anaconda originally had a much more explicit language that would have likely resulted in an R rating from the MPAA. To ensure a PG-13 rating, several lines of dialogue are dubbed via ADR, many of which do not match the lips of the characters who speak. For example, the word freaking is often replaced for its more profane counterpart. Ice Cube's dialogue as Danny Rich is particularly mismatched, as the cleaned-up dialogue he recorded in post-production often fails to sync with his mouth while speaking. At least 2 overt references to Ice Cube's rap career are made during Anaconda. The most obvious comes when Cube's character Danny Rich utters that "today is a good day," a clear reference to Cube's 1992 hit single. More subtle is the scene in which Danny listens to the song "Faux Life" by gangster rap artist Mac 10. Ice Cube co-wrote the song with Mac 10, his fellow West Side Connection rap group member. One of the most memorably macabre scenes in the film comes when Cerrone baits the anacondas by throwing chum in the form of monkey's blood into the water. Believe it or not, no fake blood was used for the scene. Instead, the monkey's blood was created by using a mixture of jelly and plum juice. Although anacondas have round, spherical pupils in real life, the snakes in the film were given slanted pupils to make them appear more dangerous. In January of 2020, Sony Pictures announced plans to restart the Anaconda franchise from scratch. According to The Hollywood Reporter, the film is currently in development with writer Evan Doherty hired to pen the screenplay. Doherty is responsible for writing Snow White and the Huntsman, Killing Season, Divergent, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and Tomb Raider. He's also been announced as the writer of the Snow White spin-off Rose Red, as well as the pilot episode of TV series The Adventures of El Borak. The plot get in the way of the movie for this one when they come across the boat. From the first scene, we discover that Mateo Sirwan and dead Danny Cho are all poachers in it for the money. Mateo gets eaten, but the rest of the crew still haven't seen the snake horny. Denise and Gary almost get appended by a boar, but no big snake yet. That changes when the anaconda attacks the boat at night and kills Gary. The way the snake wraps around its prey to crush and bite them is cool. You can almost feel their bones being crushed under its massive weight, while Terry tries to kill the snake and save Gary. Sirwan knocks her over before he too is taken captive and tied up. It should also be said that Gary sealed his S1 to find the snake and get some cash out of it between being greedy and sex. Crazed. He wasn't going to make it with Sarah out of commission. The rest of the crew head home and hope to get Kale the help he needs. Anaconda the black sheep, this is that bonding I talked about earlier. Westridge is just as stuffy as his name. And there is a conflict early on involving golf and loud music by this point in the movie, though they are all survivors for now anyway, and discussing the first thing they are going to do when they get back to civilization. Of course, there's dichotomy here, but it's fun to see them get along so well. Denise, though, is too distraught, though. And while the rest of the group goes to cut the boat free of its shackles when it gets trapped near a waterfall, she goes for the kill on Sin. He kept calling her baby bird in the absolute creepiest way, and he is able to use her grief to overtake her. And we have the only non-snake death in the movie. He snaps her neck and drops her body in the water. The anaconda comes back for an easy meal, and Westridge essentially sacrifices himself again. Some cool character growth here to let the others onto the boat. The snake is shot and Sirwan goes crazy, attempting to kill the remaining survivors. A groggy D passes out again. We then get the tried Andrew false ending, where the remaining crew finds been a trap from Sirwan. The snake they killed wasn't the biggest thing out there, and Sirwan has our heroes tied up as bait. They are able to break free and turn the tables on Saran. He gets a little tenderized and a lot eaten, which just leaves Danny and Terry to kill the hunter as they run throughout the dockhouse and figure out how to kill it. The snake realizes its mobility isn't quite there. With a surly Oscar winner jamming up its gullet, it spits out Sir One, who is now melted, like you took a Hot Pocket out of the microwave. A tad too late, and he has the audacity to wink at Terry before falling over dead. This is dumb and silly, and a 12-year-old me loved every second of it in theaters. I remember arguing that he may not be actually dead and could come back for the sequel. He didn't, and we would eventually get hassled by the Hoff in the third movie, but I'll wait for Tyler to discuss that awfully good horror movie. Danny and Terry hatch a plan to blow the snake up and almost get caught, but make it out as a badly done CGI snake floats down into the water. Fake ending number 2 ensues before Danny finally gets an axe into its head and a classic 90s closing quip. They are safe, and of course are treated to finding the tribe they were looking for the whole time. The cast would go on to make other horror movies, some better like The Cell, The Mummy, or Crimson Peak, and some that aren't as good like The Haunting, or nearly everything Cary Ward did in the mid-200s. Anaconda was nominated for tons of Rizzies and other bad movie award shows, and may not be as fondly remembered as some of the giant animal movies I mentioned at the start. But it deserves better. I won't let it go into the mist of the Amazon and be forgotten to time, because I had just as much fun as 12-year out and let its charm twist around you. Part return to 70s exploitation fodder. Like Piranha, part old-fashioned monster movie, Anaconda is as simplistic as its self-explanatory title, for all that the movie provides a fair number of laughs, even if you can't help wondering how many of them were actually intentional. Stoltz plays an anthropologist scouring the Amazon for a lost tribe of Indians, accompanied by a documentary film crew that includes Lopez, Ice Cube, and Jonathan Hyde. He heads upriver, and swiftly, of Paul Jon Voight with his bizarre accent and extravagant facial tics. Saran is clearly a beer or two short of the full six-pack, but before anyone can scream fruitcake, he's taken over the boat, and Lopez et al. Are fighting a 40-feet anaconda widely regarded as the most vicious snakes on the planet. Anacondas like to swallow their American directors to get a shot, in Hollywood employs some mix of animatronics and computer effects to capture this process, but only the most gullible viewers will be convinced. Far more entertainment is to be had observing Voight, whether leering at the delightful Lopez or speaking out of the side of his mouth. He gives a performance reminiscent of Brando's infamous turning. Apocalypse Now, it's a long way from Midnight Cowboy and Coming Home, although to be fair, Voight didn't have to play opposite Agent Snake in either of those movies, with Hyde as a caricatured Englishman and Ice Cube doing his homeboy in the jungle bit. There's enough here to keep you watching and groaning, while Loa can console himself with the thought that he's made a camp classic. More detail, the Anaconda movie franchise slithered onto the big screen in 1997, sinking its fangs into the creature feature genre with a blend of campy horror, star power, and oversized reptilian terror. What began as a single film starring Jennifer Lopez and Ice Cube has since spawned a series of sequels and spin-offs, each attempting to recapture the wild jungle-charged thrills of the original, from the murky waters of the Amazon to low-budget TV movies. The Anaconda franchise has carved out a unique niche, love it or hate it. These films are hard to ignore. In this Anaconda movie franchise review, we'll dive deep into these series, exploring its highs and lows across 8 key categories, from plot twists and casting choice to visual effects and cultural staying power, whether you're a diehard fan or a curious newcomer. This breakdown will rank the films, unpack their legacy, and answer the question, does this snake still have bite? Let's uncoil the full story of a franchise. It's as much about survival as it is about spectacle. I also read about tracing the evolution of ray tracing in computer graphics list of all movies in the Anaconda franchise, Anaconda 1997. Cast in their roles, Jennifer Lopez as Terry Flores, a documentary filmmaker leading the crew. Ice Cube as Danny Rich, the pragmatic cameraman, and Terry's childhood friend Jon Voight as Paul Sarwan, a manipulative snake hunter with a hidden agenda. Eric Stoltz as Dr. Stephen Cale, an anthropologist who spends Much of the film incapacitated Owen Wilson as Gary Dixon, the sound technician with a laid-back vibe, Jonathan Hyde as Warren West, a pompous British narrator, Carrie Wurr as Denise, Caliber, Gary's assistant, and love interest plot the original Anaconda. Kicks off the franchise with a National Geographic crew venturing into the Amazon to fend the elusive Shiro Amatrib. Their journey takes a dark turn when they rescue Paul Swan, a stranded poacher obsessed with capturing a legendary 40-foot anaconda. Sarah hijacks the mission, leading the crew into a deadly game of survival against the massive man-eating snake. As tensions rise and the body count grows, Terry and Danny must outwit both the Predator and the Predator-obsessed Saran to make it out alive. Critic consensus critics were based on 56. Reviews average 5.10. Anaconda's pulpy pleasures are constricted by its own absurdity, but creature feature fans may enjoy its brazen silliness. Metacritic scores at a 37 out of 100 from 20 reviews, indicating generally unfavorable reviews. Roger Ebert stood out, awarding 3.54 stars, praising its slick, scary, funny style, while others slammed the hokey effects and Jon Voight's over-the-top performance. Though many now see it as campy charm, awards nominations, and recognition. Anaconda racked up 6 Jersey nominations in 1998. Worst Picture, Worst Actor Voight, Worst Director Louis Loa, Worst Screenplay, Worst New Star the Animatronic Anaconda, and Worst Screen Couple Voight and the Snake all lost to The Postman or Double Team. It also earned 2 Saturn Award nods. Best Actress, Lopez lost to Jodie Foster for Contact, and Best Horror Film lost to The Devil's Advocate. Over time, it's gained cult classic status, often dubbed so bad it's good, and grossed $136.8 million worldwide against a $45 million budget. Also read about how to become a concept artist. Anaconda's The Hunt for the Blood Orchid 2004 cast in their roles: Johnny Mesner as Bill Johnson, a tough expedition leader Katie Strickland as Sam Rogers, a determined scientist Matthew Marsden as Doc Jack Byron, an ambitious and unethical researcher Nicolas Gonzalez as Doc Ben Douglas, a supportive team member Eugene Byrd as Cole Burris, the tech-savvy comic relief Morris Chestnut as Gordon Mitchell, Bill's level-headed partners Ollie Richardson. Whitfield as Gail Stern, the group's financial backer. Plot: this theatrical sequel shifts gears following a team of scientists and adventurers chasing a rara orchid in Borneo that could unlock immortality and a fortune. Their quest turns deadly when they stumble into Anaconda territory, where the snakes have grown massive and aggressive due to the orchid's effects. As the group battles torrential rain, treacherous terrain, and their relentless reptiles, alliance, fracture, and survival becomes the only prize worth fighting for. Critic consensus: Anacondas. The Hunt for the Blood Orchid fares slightly worse than its predecessor, with a 26% Rotten Tomatoes rating from 126 reviews. Average 430.10, a rehash of the already silly original, with Thrills Metacritic gives it a 40 out of 100. Based on 28 reviews suggesting mixed or average reception. Critics noted improved effects but criticized the lackluster cast and predictable plot, though some fans argue it's the franchise's strongest entry for its tighter narrative. Awards nominations and recognition: no major awards or nominations here, but it earned a modest box office haul of $71 million against a $20 to $25 million budget. It's gained a small following among creature feature enthusiasts who appreciate its focus on snake-driven action. Over camp, it's often ranked higher than the original. By franchise fans, also read about a comprehensive guide to film editing software. Anaconda 3 Offspring 2008 cast and their roles: David Hasselhoff as Hammett, a grizzled mercenary hunting the snake's crystal. Alan as Amanda Hayes, a scientist trying to clean up a corporate mess. John Rhys Davis as Murdoch, a ruthless businessman funding the experiment. Patrick Regis as Nick, Amanda's assistant, caught in the chaos. Anthony Green as Captain Grasney, a security chief out of his depth plot. This made-for-TV sequel dives into sci-fi territory. A pharmaceutical company's experiments with anacondas fueled by the blood orchid go awry, unleashing 2 giant fast-breeding snakes in rural America. Amanda, a guilt-ridden scientist, teams up with Hammett, a brash snake hunter, to stop the creatures before they overrun civilization. It's a race against time, corporate grid, and reptilian rampage, with plenty of low-budget carnage along the way. Critic consensus: no Rotten Tomatoes or Metacritic scores exist due to its TV release, but fan reviews on IMDb, 2.300+ users, reflect a consensus of disappointment. Critics who covered it pant the cheap effects, wooden acting despite Hasselhoff's cult appeal, and a plot that leans too hard into absurdity without the original's charm. It's widely seen as a franchise low point. Awards nominations and recognition. No awards or nominations as expected for a sci-fi original. Its recognition lies in its infamy, Hasselhoff's involvement, and the shift to TV gave it A. So it's watchable vibe for B-movie buffs, but it's largely forgotten beyond die-hard Anaconda completists. Also read about How to Become a Best Boy, Anaconda's Trail of Blood 2009 cast and their roles. Crystal Allen as Amanda Hayes reprising her role as the snake-fighting scientist, John Rhys-Davies as Murdoch, back as the dying tycoon seeking immortality, Lyndon Ashe as Jackson, a mercenary tracking the Anaconda, Danny Midwinter as Scott Murdoch's loyal but doomed assistant, Anna Olaru as Heather, a researcher caught in the Crossfire plot, picking up after offspring. A dying Murdoch forces Amanda to retrieve more blood orchid samples to cure his cancer accidentally, creating a regenerating super anaconda as the snake re-res havoc in Eastern Europe. Amanda joins forces with Jackson and a small team to destroy it. The creature's ability to heal itself ramps up the stakes, leading to a bloody showdown where science and survival collide. Critic consensus, like its predecessor, no formal critic scores exist, but IMDb users rate it 2.9/10. 600 plus votes, slightly better than Offspring reviews. Highlight the repetitive plot and even worse CGI. Though some praise Crystal Allen's commitment, it's considered another disposable TV entry lacking the theatrical film's scale or personality. Awards, nominations, and recognition. No awards or notable nominations. It's recognized mostly as a footnote in the franchise's decline, though its regenerative snake twist earned minor buzz among sci-fi viewers. It's a curiosity for those tracking the Anaconda saga's evolution or devolution. Also read about Halloween Trilogy review, Lake Placid vs. Anaconda 2015 cast and their roles. Corin Neck as Tall, a wildlife officer tangled in the chaos. Yan C. Butler as Reba, tough sheriff from the Lake Placid series. Robert Englund as Jim Bickerman, a eccentric poacher with a Freddy Krueger flair. Annabelle Wright as Sarah Murdoch, a scientist linked to the experiment. Stephen Billington as Beach, a corporate lackey overseeing the mess. Movie plot. This crossover pits the Anaconda and Lake Placid franchises against each other. A botched experiment merges Anaconda and crocodile DNA, unleashing hybrid monsters near Clear Lake, Tool, and Reba lead a ragtag group including sorority girls and mercenaries to stop the creatures while Bickerman exploits the chaos for profit. It's a BIM movie mashup of gore, quips, and absurdity, culminating in a reptile showdown. No Rotten Tomatoes or Metacritic ratings, but IMDb scores at 3.2/10. 900 plus votes critics and fans call it a shameless cash grab with shoddy effects and a nonsensical plot. Though Robert Englund's hammy turn earns some love, it's peak sci-fi schlock, divisive but entertaining for trash movie fans. No awards or nominations. Its recognition comes from blending two cult franchises, appealing to fans of both series. England's presence and the over-the-top premise give it a niche following, though it's often cited as the franchise's silliest chapter. Also read about How to Become a Stunt Coordinator. The Anaconda movie franchise is a curious beast, pun intended. What began as a splashy, star-driven creature feature in 1997 has slithered through sequels, TV movies, and even a crossover, leaving behind a trail of camp carnage and cinematic oddities. As I reflect on the Anaconda saga, it's clear that this franchise is less about consistent quality and more about embracing its own absurdity, a trait that's both its greatest strength and its Achilles heel. From the jungles of the Amazon to the backlots of sci-fi, the Anaconda films offer a roller coaster of thrills, laughs, and head-scratching moments that make them a fascinating case study in B-movie evolution. Let's start with the original Anaconda 1997. It's the crown jewel of the franchise, not because it's a masterpiece, but because it perfectly balances Hollywood polish with unapologetic schlock. The cast alone is a time capsule. Jennifer Lopez, pre-superstardom, brings grit as Terry Flores. Ice Cube delivers streetwise cool as Danny, and Jon Voight's scenery as Paul Swan, with an accent so thick you could slice it with a machete. The plot, a documentary crew hijacked by a snake-obsessed poacher. Leans hard into survival horror tropes, but it's the execution that sets it apart. The animatronic Anaconda, though clunky by today's standards, has a tangible menace that CGI often lacks. Sure, the film earned easy nods galore, but its $136 million box office haul and cult status prove it struck a chord for me. Anaconda succeeds because it knows what it is, a popcorn flick that doesn't pretend to be high art. It's the kind of movie you watch with friends shouting at the screen as characters make predictably dumb decisions. Orchid 2004, the only other theatrical release, this sequel ditches the original. Star power for a lesser-known ensemble, Johnny Mesner, Katie Strickland Morris. Chestnut, and shifts the setting to Borneo. The plot revolves around a quest for a life-extending orchid, which naturally attracts oversized anacondas. I appreciate the attempt to pivot away from the first film's formula. It's less campy and more focused on survivalist tension. The CGI snakes are a step up from 1997's animatronics, though still dated by mid-2000 standards. Critics gave it a tepid 26% on Rotten Tomatoes, and I get why it lacks the original's personality, yet I'd argue it's the franchise's most cohesive entry. The pacing is tighter, the stakes feel higher, and the jungle setting is gorgeously shot. It's not groundbreaking, but as a standalone creature feature, it holds its own for Anaconda fans. It's a worthy successor that respects the premise without overreaching the franchise. Takes a sharp nosedive with the TV movies. Anaconda 3 Offspring 2008 and Anaconda's Trail of Blood. Sci-fi originals mark the point where the Anaconda series trades theatrical ambition for low-budget excess. Offspring introduces David Hasselhoff as Hammett, a mercenary hunting experimental anacondas in rural America, while Crystal Allen's Amanda Hayes anchors both films as a scientist battling corporate greed and mutant snakes. The plots are bonkers. Think blood, orchid experiments gone wrong leading to fast breeding or regenerating reptiles, and the execution is cheap CGI. Here is laughably bad with snakes that look like they crawled out of a PlayStation 2 game. Hasselhoff's presence in Offspring is a highlight, his self-aware swagger briefly elevating the silliness, but Trail of Blood doubles down on the absurdity without the charm. IMDb ratings 2.7 and 2.9 respectively reflect their reception, and I can't disagree. These films feel like cash grabs lacking the heart or scale of their predecessors, yet there's a perverse appeal in their shamelessness. But movie fans might find guilty pleasure in the chaos, but former the franchise's nadir, the final chapter, Lake Placid vs. Anaconda 2015, is a crossover that pits the Anaconda franchise against its crocodile-eccentric cousin, Robert Englund's turn-aside-arranged poacher. It's the standout, his Freddy Krueger-esque energy injecting life into another wise, messy affair, the plot he bred monsters born from an experiment wreaking havoc near a lake is peak sci-fi nonsense, complete with sorority girls and disposable mercenaries at 3.210 England. And the novelty of the mashup, I find it oddly endearing. It's the franchise fully embracing its trashy roots. The effects are still abysmal and the script is a mess. But there's a gonzo charm in watching 2B movie icons slug it out. It's not good by any stretch, but it's the kind of bad that's fun with the right mindset. So what do I make of the Anaconda franchise as a whole? It's a mixed bag defined by diminishing returns. The original thrives on its cast and campy charisma. Hunt for the Blood Orchid offers a solid sequel, and the TV movie spiral into low-rent absurdity. The crossover is a chaotic cherry on top. For better or worse, visually the franchise peaks early. The 1997 film's practical effects have a retro appeal, while later CGI ranges from passable to pitiful. Thematically, it's stuck in a loop of humans versus nature, with little innovation beyond new settings or snake gimmicks, regeneration hybrids. The cast quality drops off a cliff post-1997. Though Hasselhoff and Englund bring cult to the later entries for me, the Anaconda franchise's legacy lies in its refusal to take itself too seriously. It's not Jaws, it's not even Lake Placid, but it doesn't need to be. Its cultural impact is niche, a few memorable lines. You're going to need a bigger boat. I mean, Snake, a boost to Lopez's early career and a blueprint for creature feature. Excess, critics may scoff, but fans keep it alive. Whether through nostalgic rewatches or ironic appreciation compared to peers like Piranha or Tremors, it lacks staying power or consistency, yet it's carved out a small, scaly corner of pop culture. If I had to rank them, I'd go Anaconda 1997 for its iconic vibe, Anaconda's The Hunt for The Blood Orchid for its underrated polish, Lake Placid versus Anaconda for its wild absurdity, Anaconda 3 Offspring for Hasselhoff's haminess, and Anaconda's Trail of Blood as the weakest link. The franchise's charm is its willingness to slither forward, no matter how ridiculous the path with reboots and nostalgia in vogue. I wouldn't be shocked to see Anaconda resurface, maybe with better effects, maybe not. Until then, it remains a gloriously uneven ride, a testament to the enduring allure of giant snakes and the humans dumb enough to hunt them. Also read about the evolution and impact of visual effects, VFX, in the film industry 20 years after its release. Anaconda 1997 remains both a terrible and amazing B-movie. A documentary film crew sail down the Amazon River in search of a lost tribe and are stalked by a 40-feet animatronic snake. We are, of course, supposed to believe it is real. This sounds like an unearthed cult classic, but director Luis Loa had a decent $45 million budget. It ranked number 1 at the domestic box office, and it made more than $136 million worldwide. Not bad, considering it was almost universally panned by critics, with a rating of 38% on Rotten Tomatoes and 6 nominations. There were predictable howls about this being yet another Spielberg ripoff. If this is what you are looking for, watch the amazing Joe Dante, Roger Corman 1978 film Piranha. But Anaconda is less Jaws and more Jaws 3. The creature feature has a nonsensical plot, over-the-top acting and special effects that haven't held up. But if you stop wondering if you're supposed to be laughing, it really is an enjoyable, ridiculous adventure in 1997 disaster. Films dominated the U.S. box office. The top 3 earners were Titanic, Men in Black, and The Lost World, Jurassic Park. Similar releases included Dante's Peak. Volcano and Event Horizon action films were also hugely successful. The top 10 included Air Force One, Tomorrow Never Dies, and The Fifth Element. It is not a total surprise that Anaconda ranks 23rd, but it is still pretty impressive for a film about a killer snake. The fun of Anaconda is all in the casting. I'm assuming that the eclectic group of recognizable actors was what encouraged viewers. Oscar winner Jon Voight lent some prestige. Eric Stoltz was familiar from his many film and television roles, and in the previous 2 months, Jennifer Lopez had played Jack Nicholson's mistress in Blood and Wine and the title role in the biopic Selena Plus. Who wouldn't want to see Ice Cube fight? As Nake, the 8 characters are a collection of types that are standard and so completely predictable that no character development is needed or offered. They are so straightforward that you really have no stake in their survival, but not caring means that it's much easier to watch their number. Dwindle Lopez is the tough, sexy director who surprisingly never takes her clothes off, which left much of the audience disappointed. The NA is absolutely expected in this type of movie. The anthropologist Stoltz is her lover, and the film's financier Snooze Ice Cube is the down-to-earth cameraman who gets done. I am 100% here for the ridiculously snooty English host, West Jonathan Hyde, who brings champagne, uses the deck like a golf range, and says things like, "I'm not your bloody poodle." It is obvious that devious skipper Mateo Vincent Costanos, hippie sound guy Gary Owen Wilson, and fun producer Denise Carey Wurr are going to go first. What is a surprise is Voight. His take on Serwyn, a villainous ex-priest turned snake hunter, is something else. He is a warped throwback to an old-timey villain, the type that ties damsels to train tracks. He is excessively creepy and so transparently untrustworthy that it would not have been surprising had he turned to camera and gone M. But his agonizing attempt at an accent, unnatural pacing, and exaggerated sneering is absolutely torturous. Seriously, he makes falling prey to that snake seems desirable. Saran scams his way onto the boat and proceeds to use everyone as bait in his quest to capture the anaconda. You know, man is the real monster, etc. We're supposed to believe it's for the money, but really Sarah is seemingly in love with this snake. Buenos no ace. Beautiful. He marvels when it appears. Try not to laugh when he described how they strike, wrap around you, hold you tighter than your true love. And you get the privilege of hearing your bones break before the power of embrace causes your veins to explode. The plot is wonderfully ridiculous, surrendering any pretense at accuracy. This snake is so very dangerous because it defies the rules of nature and gravity, anacondas. They do not hatch from eggs, and they definitely do not scream if this amped-up snake isn't scary enough. There's also a reference to that urban myth about Candor, the tiny fish that are said to swim up the urethra and lodge themselves with their painful spines. What makes Anaconda even odd is that it is unusually sanitized for a monster movie and rated PG-13. It uses plenty of horror tropes, like dangerous strangers violating a restricted area and showing the killer's point of view. It takes this last one to a whole new level when we are placed inside the snake itself, witnessing a body move toward you. Sid is being swallowed. However, there is little gore and a complete lack of sex and gratuitous nudity. The characters even get in the water fully clothed, which frankly seems impractical. Gary does Denise, is it just me or does the jungle make you really, really horny? And they does sneak off into the jungle, but are interrupted by an angry boar, which is killed by Sir Juan, who just happens to be right there. There is also the serious romance between Lopez and Stoltz, which is so dull that we forget about it once he is incapacitated by a wasp in the throat and an amateur tracheotomy, sir. Again, of course, the best thing about Anaconda is definitely the ending. Ciron's corpse winks at Lopez, who is, of course, our final girl. But Ice Cube survives against type and saves the day. Then they literally sail off into the goddamn sunset, leaving us wondering not just how did this get made, but how did it get released. Anaconda is unintentionally so bad. It's good, kind of like the never-ending Transformers series. Just because it is decisively bad has not stopped people from liking it to enjoy Anaconda. You just have to submit to the silliness. Extra information you don't know about the... We're in here, Gary Dixon, Owen Wilson in Anaconda. That sentence pretty accurately sums up most people's appreciation of both the movie, Anaconda life in general, and the state of the universe. When you finished reading this article, you will know some. Do you remember Anaconda, the 1997 killer snake film starring Jennifer Lopez, Ice Cube, and Jon Voight? It had the tagline, "When you can't breathe, you can't scream." It got nominated for 6 Razzies, but instead of such ignominy went on to become a cult hit and spawned 3 sequels until a couple of weeks ago. I didn't remember Anaconda because I'd never seen it. Somehow this pleasure had passed me by, and it existed as a sizable hole in my pop cultural consciousness, a hole the size of the world's biggest snake. I don't know how I managed to miss Anaconda or just never cross its path, but there you go, and that was the situation then recently. Fortunately, that changed, and it was all thanks to social media pressure. Twitter, which I sometimes feel should be called Hisser, is only really useful for 2 things. 1, enthusing about your favorite films, and 2, engaging in geek conversation and trading obscure in jokes with others who have similar sympathies and get your references. You can also have some fun following the broventures of Ian Mecklin and Patrick Stewart, I guess. But that's not really important in the grand cosmic scheme of things. Anaconda is. So I'll get back to that and business of trading references and swapping film recommendations one day. I was idly doing that with an upstanding gentleman named Patrick Spruill, who has written stuff for this fine website. I'm guessing he just rewatched Anaconda because he was praising it as one of the greatest films of the 90s. He suffixed that with the simplest statements, nothings, or into that. What you will instead. I decided I would say something because I was bored, clearly because I was on Twitter, and duly centaur. I remarked that the first thing I think of when I see your Hearthword Anaconda is the hilarious black exploitation spoof Black Dynamite, because Anaconda malt liquor gives you ooh-hif that means nothing to you. I urge you to seek out Black Dynamite and avoid Anaconda malt liquor. He also added that I hadn't seen Anaconda, and this really upset. Patrick had demanded that I rectify this heinous error, and went on to gush about Anaconda's gloriousness while dancing imagined to a particular Nicki Minaj tracking snakeskin booties, because that day he was all about everything Anaconda Llosa said, that he'd love me forever if I zavoured its goodness, and because I'm so insecure and lonely, I decided to comply. 1 week later, he tweeted me again saying he was not impressed about my not watching Anaconda. Without it he knows, so I thought I better get to it. What's more, his avatar is the Lego movie's Vitruvius the Wise Old Wizard, with the voice of Morgan Freeman, and that felt significant. Like I was a special set on a quest of immense importance. I should listen to this strange sage figure on the other side of the internet. I cried out to myself, Anaconda, bring it. I managed to find the movie hidden in the cable TV schedules and set it to record. I woke up especially extra early on a Monday morning for the viewing experience, because a creature feature is always the best way to start the week. Anaconda malt liquor would, of course, be the very worst way to start the week. The next 90 minutes were quite something. I had myself a high time with Anaconda's BIM movie thrills, old-fashioned action, adventure flick sensibilities, and simple, straightforward thrust feeling. So 90s. It touched some nostalgic buttons, as well as bringing the required killer animal action and all the other beats I'd expect and want from a cinematic beast of this kin. Director Luis Llosa's film is perfectly paced, features some rainforest photography, and all the action scenes are gripping. Anaconda has genuine compelling suspense, and throughout I was hanging on, not sure what was going to happen next, or which character would become the next fatality. Those protagonists are all well assayed by solid actors acquitting themselves well and completely committing to what could easily be dismissed as schlocky material. And then there's Jon Voight, whose commitment is something exceptional and needs to be exalted as some of the finest crazy ham you can find on celluloid. But we'll come back to the Voidstrom later. Anaconda is, quite frankly, aside from a few bits of dated, iffy CGI and a shot of waterfall running backwards, lazy recycling and reversing of footage for shame, the film stands up as a good action yarn. It's as decent as, if not better than, most run-of-the-mill genre picks you could find at the multiplex today, albeit with slightly lesser special effects and a shorter runtime, which is actually welcome. The movie definitely didn't deserve those 6 Razzie nominations, and the reputation that precedes it, a reputation that leads ignoramus like me into expecting an absolute crap-proof Anaconda, is in. Slithers for a place in the Cinematic Snake Attack Hall of Fame. It's never going to rise up and triumph over Raiders of the Lost Ark or the original Conan the Barbarian, but it's certainly got the chops and the chutzpah to make its presence felt at any official Cinematic Snake Attack Hall of Fame suaire. It definitely elevates itself above Snakes on a Plane. And as far as high-concept 90s action horrors go, it's in the same league as Tremors and Mimic, my man. Patrick's claim that Anaconda is one of the greatest films of the 90s is an overstatement, but I agree that the flick is something a wee bit special after watching and providing enthusiastic feedback to my dealer, an appropriate title because that dude hooked me up and got me hooked on some dope. I realized that Anaconda is more than just a knockabout creature feature, as I offered up my report to an invisible figure who may actually be Vitruvius from the Lego movie Anaconda, uncoiled before my mind's eye while watching. I'd been enjoying the film on a shallow level, but those murky jungle waters are a lot deeper than the surface impression suggests, deep enough to hide Earth's biggest snake and myriad shadowy mysteries. You should never judge a book by its cover or a snake by its skin, especially when it's shedding it to grow even bigger. Pondering on this motion picture, opening my mind and stepping back to study it holistically, I experienced a grand, unsettling revelation. Anaconda is more than a mere killer animal B-movie. Boating around the Amazon backwaters, Anaconda is a pointed message movie and a metaphysical. Discourse disclaimer: Anaconda may not be a pointed message movie come metaphysical discourse, and this may not detailed below may offend those who spiritually align themselves, one of the Abrahamic religions. It is not my wish to upset anyone or challenge anyone's faith. I am simply objectively presenting a possible angle on a work of art, colored possibly by my own personal background as a student of both film and religion. You are free to make up your own mind as illustrated by Room 237. The documentary about the many crazy conspiracy theories surrounding the Shining people take all kinds of lessons and philosophies out of films, and many of them are utterly ludicrous and probably not worth serious monotheistic Abrahamic faiths, and condemn the theological notion of God as the almighty force to worship, praise, and obey. It does this by way of analogy, and its protagonists function as representations of entities in the cosmic equation, while its narrative hammers home its ideology. In this story, the titular megapin is the devil, which is obvious because the symbolic link between snakes and his satanic majesty is well known. Yet in Anaconda, the main villain is not actually the Anaconda. The real big bad is actually Jon Voight's perverse Paraguayan poacher, Paul Swan, and he is a stand-in for God. At least, he's a representation of one unpleasant idealization of God, an envisioned God that is wrathful, patronizingly patriarchal, controlling, and indifferent to, or in fact sadistically entertained by human suffering. Imagine someone with a grudge against God forming the worst possible impression from the Old Testament and the fearful fire and brimstone sermonizing of zealous Puritans and Christian fundamentalists. That's the God of Anaconda, in a way like the angry perceived God that Kirk faces down in Star Trek: The Final Frontier. Except he wants a big snake, the devil, as opposed to a starship. What's more, this God is formed in man's own image in the shape of Jon Voight, and he leers and sneers and eyeballs humanity like a hungry vulture. Humanity is represented, of course, by the multi-ethnic miscellaneous crew who are in South America to shoot a documentary for National Geographic. Their mission: to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no man has gone before. Oh, sorry. That's actually the Starship Enterprise. But this little vessel has a similar objective. Director Terry Flores, Jennifer Lopez, and her colleagues are seeking the Chiroamatrib, exploring the unfathomed depths of the Amazon rainforest, and I guess boldly going where no cameraman has gone before. Just like the Final Frontier, they end up coming into contact with a cruel, warped version of God. From here, there are spoilers. Soonly proceed if you want Anaconda and possibly organized religion ruined for you. Let the Rebelites camera action in the beginning. Our empathetic, inbred spirits start out from Manus to commence their voyage through the Amazon, a lush Garden of Eden. They are driven by curiosity and are searching for connection. Knowledge is self-fulfillment, and the feeling that they are a part of wider nature. They desire to, possibly even lost, they go about this journey. Enter, good God, sir, need to guide them an odd figure appearing out of nowhere. Suan claims to know where the Chiroama tribe dwells. So in effect, God puts himself forward as the sage omniscient to follow his superior knowledge, worthy of reverence. But there comes a point where this apparently all-knowing singular figure's fallibility is exposed. The humble crew struggle to get their head around his odd ways and eccentric character, and his supreme intelligence is outright doubted when anthropologist Cale, Eric Stoltz, corrects an inaccurate story about the Shiro. Shama God is affronted by this impedance and, feeling undermined and threatened, reacts in vindictive fashion. Saran places a wasp in Cale's snorkel, and it stings him in the throat. The heretic symbolically silenced as God quells and punishes the voice of doubt in order to assert his preeminent control. From there, the ride down the Gop river of life is a journey completely dictated by the self-appointed overlord's preeminent inviolable control. Serwin hijacks the quest and forcefully coerces the crew towards his ends, namely finding and conquering the devil. This abomination was not going to trouble the humans, and only comes to be a serious issue once God has made it into a pressing problem and established it as an antagonist in opposition to himself. You brought the devil. Production manager Denise Carey-Wurr cries quite correctly. At one juncture, there's a devil inside. Everyone sneers God in reply to further enforce the dread of soul damnation and augment his status as the greater force in this life and death battle for salvation. He utilizes the fear of this terrible devil, a fear accentuated by the scarred Ciron's several ominous speeches to manipulate the mass crowd now under his thumb. The corruption of Gary Owen Wilson is pertinent, as Ciron's promises of later shiny reward after the ordeal, a glorious afterlife, wealth, and safe comfort equated with heaven secure the blonde sound engineer's unconditional support he surrenders to. God entrusts in him completely because of the belief that they don't know about the therein. Of course, that has been fabricated by Sir One. And it's a major distraction, a fatal distraction to the mere mortals who were seeking self-actualization. Realizing this, the crew rebel against the malevolent manifestation of the monotheistic deity in one. As Wes Jonathan Hyde puts it, after whacking Sarah with a golf club at the climax, the survivors smash the rigid good-evil dichotomy by blowing up both the serpent and swan in a mill. It's possible that the setting alludes to the decline of religion's all-encompassing influence in industrialist society. Following the Enlightenment and the ascent of rationalist philosophy, regardless, the remaining humans float on down the river of life and eventually find the Hiroshima by themselves. They can make their documentary the film that will be Terry's big break, and I read that as being a spiritual breakthrough as well. Anaconda is either ushering the audience towards finding peace in pantheism, more nature worship traditions as practiced by cultures like the Hiroshima, or as an explicit advocate of atheism, may be seen as a triumph of humanist free will counter to the illogical constructs and dogmatic doctrines of Abrahamic religious authorities once again. This may not be the intended reading of the filmmakers and the cast. It's important to note here that Ice Cube identifies as a Muslim, and that Jennifer Lopez has put her Roman Catholic faith on record. See her track Jenny from the Block, in which she expresses her need to put God first. Such things are at odds with my assessment of Anaconda, and it's entirely possible that I'm overthinking this and hyper-theorizing what may simply just be a 90s B-movie. On the other hand, maybe there is a grander conspiracy at work with something of the Da Vinci Code about it, except the plot to discredit the ecclesiastical authorities is encoded in the frames of a creature. Feature Anaconda is out to attack God and deconstruct the fundamental metaphysical structure that is the foundation for the major monotheistic faiths and the ideological basis for the Western world's moral outlook. I'm not that sure, and now I'm in a daysaze and wondering if Apocalypse Now or Fitzcarraldo style. I've lost my mind on this trip up the Jungle River. How did I end up in this mess? Why did that digital wizard search me out and ensnare me in because of my discoveries? And Jon Voight's performance, what the hell? I have no solid answers here. I mean, I don't know about the I'm in here. All I can be certain of is that I've taken the following things from this experience. Firstly, sometimes amazing discoveries and spiritual enlightenment occur when you converse with erudite pop culture enthusiasts on Twitter. Hisser. Furthermore, every film is worth a deeper look and is worthy of consideration and hyper-analytical deconstruction on a cerebral philosophical level. That was definitely true for Anaconda. It gave me the wee Amazon Terry Jennifer Lopez seems to be the organizer, with her cameraman Danny Ice Cube and a professor Stephen Eric Stoltz will be doing the investigation. There are more characters, but who cares, right? Most of the rest of the crew serves as early fodder for the big-ass snake. However, the most important cast member, Psycho Snake Hunter Sarwin Jon Voight, comes on board after his boat is marooned. Voight owns this role and is clearly having a blast, if nothing else. The film is great because of the faces he makes. He serves as the driving force to stop the search for the tribe and instead look for a big snake that would be worth a lot of money. Not sure where to put this, but Voight's accent in this movie is a mixture of Tony Montana and everything in Deliverance. The show stealer is his psycho face. Though my notes for this film include this cast, Jon Voight's face, what the and why. My wife wanted me to mention that the fireflies are obviously Christmas lights. But of all the oddities in this movie, I found this one to be less egregious. Anyone with any background in zoology would laugh at this film's incoherent and nonsensical approach to snakes. Any anthropologist would take issue with the original project. I suppose I shouldn't be surprised that no research was done. But I'm ashamed to say there is an ambition in this film that I think we must appreciate. They wanted to make a big blockbuster about a giant super snake. Everything in this movie is just plot crap, designed to push us towards more set-piece moments where the CGI noodle will knock off another annoying character. I think they made Voight a villain, so they didn't have to utilize the snake as much to keep tension. The weirdest part about this one is that the motivations of the characters don't make a lot of sense. Voight's harebrained scheme is about 40 steps too complicated to be logical. Even the documentary crew pre-Voight seemed terribly unprepared. I know. I should not expect much from the pay. Horror genre, particularly a PG-13 90s horror film, but they didn't even bother. Here, I'm not sure if the laziness of it good enough, being the rationale behind every decision the characters make, is admirable or not. They don't even try to explain away the logical holes, but they also seem to not care that they exist. The over-the-top audacity of it all is oddly endearing. The effects are atrocious. The snake looks more like a blown-up hose than anything predatory. Why they made the damn thing shriek and scream like a monster is beyond me. Don't forget this came out 4 years after Jurassic Park. But the quality of the effects is significantly worse. Oddly, the film does have some practical effects, mainly with explosions that look okay. I'm not sure how you could build an animatronic snake, but even something basic would have been better. There's a reason we don't see much of the shark in. It's fun to watch with friends. If you're looking for something to give the old MS3T treatment to, this one should be added to your list. Oddly, I found myself surprised at this movie in some ways. We have a horror film with a Latino woman and African-American man lead, where neither are over-sexualized, and they aren't meant to be love interests for a genre that is still struggling with racial issues. This movie blows it out of the water in this front. Despite the numerous faults of this movie, it did this right, and I think that is important to note. This film, directed by Luis Los, written by Hans Bauer, Jim Cash, Jax Jr., produced by Harrah, Carol Little, Leonard Rabinowitz, starring Jennifer Lopez, Scubay Jun, Eric Stoltz, Jonathan Hyde, Owen Wilson, cinematography, Bill Butler, edited by Michael in Miller, music by Randy Edelman, production companies Columbia Pictures Cinema Line Film Corporation, distributed by Sony Pictures. Release date April 11th, 1997, running time 89 minutes, United States, Brazil language English, budget $45 million, box office $136.88 million. So guys, this is the review of Anaconda movie and some information about it. How do you like our today's video? Please let us know by commenting. And if you like this video, please like it, share it, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching.